Everybody, good afternoon. This is Alexis with Recruiting Daily. Thank you for joining us today for this awesome webinar that we're going to have on leveraging your standout culture to attract candidates. Thanks to our sponsors at Lever and BambooHR. It's going to be a fun hour. As a reminder, we are recording this for everyone. It will be available and on our site within 24 hours of going live today. Also, on your control panel, as you're logged in here with GoToWebinar, you'll see there is an area that you can enter questions. We'll be getting to those at the end, so don't worry. Put your questions in. There's also a little option there to raise your hand. I'll be taking a look at that as we go. I also have my buddy Ryan Leary on with me, who's going to be helping moderate some of the questions today as well, so you'll be hearing his voice shortly. And just before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to today's experts. As you can see here, we've got Cassie from BambooHR, we've got Amanda from Lever, and we've got Adam from Scoop Technologies. They'll be here to talk all things candidate experience and everything you'll want to know today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ryan to get started with our experts and our first little question to kick things off. Ryan?
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Lex. And, of course, thank you to everybody for joining. I'm not going to go through any intros here. We're going to jump right to it because we have a ton of content to cover. We have three great experts, and so I'm just going to throw out the first question. And the way we'll work it today for everybody on the call is I'm going to ask a question, and we have the three panels on the call. They will chime in and have the conversation amongst themselves as they see fit, and provide that information to you, and we'll continue on there. We're just going to have a great debate on the topics and the questions that you see on the screen in front of you. So let's kick this off. First question: what are the key strategies for building a standout culture in the first place? Who wants to take that one?
This is Cassie at BambooHR. I'd love to jump in here and start us off. When I think about that question, that's always kind of the hard place, is where do I start? And I really rely, and I think it's important to rely on defined documents. So I really start by looking at your mission, vision, and values. And for some folks that may seem, yeah, I hear that, but what does that actually mean? And to me, it's important to be clear and define your why, so that as a group you can come together and have a common understanding. Why do you do what you do? And how do you go about doing it that builds this intrinsic and monetary value? And it's not about creating a catchy slogan. What you're really trying to do is create clarity and transparency into the big why behind your business. So I look at those three foundational documents, and then I also focus on the leadership development within your organization. Managing and leading people is not just an intrinsic skill that most folks have. It takes time to learn it, just like the HR profession. And there's always something more to be learning, so it's important to focus on developing your leaders because they are the ones building and leading the teams within your business. And then the last element that I look at for your strategy of having a standout culture is how do you go about building connections within your organization? What are your social patterns? Look at your social norms, programs that you have, how you facilitate feedback and communication and workflow. So that's my advice on how to take that first look at building your standout culture.
Yeah, I can take that to the sort of next level as well and talk about what we do here at Scoop. Just to give you a bit of a background of who Scoop is, my name's Adam. We're a fully flexible carpooling app that we partner with companies all over America, and we are a small team. We've got about 40 people or so within the business, so we're not as big as Lever or BambooHR. Hopefully one day we will be, but we use both of those apps to be able to help out with recruiting and also our internal HR functions as well. Just to go on what Cassie was talking about, I think defining the documents is very, very important. For us, we needed to do that early, and we also needed to make sure that all of our employees knew about that. So having that available really easily is important. We use just an internal kind of Google site to be able to have to house all of that information. And then the leadership development, what's really interesting about that is we actually use BambooHR and use all of their email alerts to be able to email specific employees at their different life cycle milestones that happen. So when they've been in the company for 2 weeks, we send them an email about their onboarding experience. Then when they've hit their first month, we send them an email about some meeting requirements or how do we run meetings within Scoop. And then we also bring in manager emails as well to sort of alert them to say your employee is here, I don't know, 2 months. This is a good time to have a discussion about their professional development. So BambooHR has been incredible for that. And then building connections, one thing, and this is just a tip I'll send out to everyone, is if you use Slack, there's an incredible integration that you can get, which is called Donut Time, and it's totally changed our culture here at Scoop. What it does is every 2 weeks we'll match you up with different people in the business, random people, and it encourages them to be able to just go out and have a coffee and learn from each other. And what that's done is pretty much put people together who are probably would never work with each other as well and learn a lot from them. So that cross collaboration and that kind of familyness comes from the sessions that happen within that every 2 weeks. So yeah.
That's interesting. And it was called Donut Time, Adam? Is that what that was called?
Yeah, Donut Time. It's just a Slack integration that you can get. It's funny, one of our employees sort of sent it through to me saying that you should check it out, and it's funny enough, it's totally changed the dynamics in the office. We've got like engineers chatting with sales professionals. We've got sales professionals chatting with our support team more often, and so on. So it's been really great.
That's interesting. Cassie, I want to come back to you for just a moment. So Adam's from a 40-person company. When you define culture or the strategies for culture, does that change from a large enterprise company with, say, 10,000 or more employees as opposed to where Adam's at with 40? I mean, obviously there's a difference, but do the pillars change there, or is that process still the same?
I don't think that the pillars change, in my opinion. I think that the ways that you might implement it throughout your organization have to change as you grow and diversify. So I joined BambooHR as employee 21. I was pretty excited about that. And now we're just right at about 300. And it's a different experience for folks who join the team, where I used to sit right next to the COO. We actually had folding tables for our desks because we were still in this kind of ghetto startup mode. And so our desks were just right next to each other, and there was 3 of us in the same room. It's a very different experience for folks who come now. But when we designed those foundational documents, we looked at what we stated our culture, our big why as a business, and what we wanted our culture to look like. We made sure it would stand the test of time, right? It has to be authentic and true and almost natural within your organization, so that as you continue to hire people, there are people who will enhance your culture rather than be a detractor. And of course, the larger you get, the more you're going to actually rely on your leadership team to keep that culture alive and vibrant, which means you're actually going to rely more strongly on those connections. It's easier to know 40 people, but after about 150 folks, they've shown that most people lose an ability to maintain that meaningful personal relationship. So it's still the same key elements, but they just look different as your organization grows bigger.
Very good. Yeah, it makes complete sense. Lex, can we go to the next slide? All right, let's move on to the next question here. So we've got a good one here. How do you build a strong, authentic employer brand that conveys your values and attracts candidates? Who's going to take this one? Anybody?
I mean, I could take it if you guys want.
I was going to say, I went first. Someone else's turn.
But people are here. Yeah, and they want to hear me talk. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we use Lever for all of our job postings. We do a couple of things. A big part for us is that we encourage our own people to reach out to their own network, which I think is really important. And that allows for really great people to come into the business, whether it is from the recruiting side of it or even just as when they actually get hired. One of the things that we do, which is part of our kind of authentic brand that we've got, is if you actually go to our website and go to our About Us page, every time you go to it, it shuffles the order of the people of where they're actually sitting on that website. And what that means for us is that it doesn't really matter what level you are or what position you have. It really is about what you can bring to the business and who you can really work with to get the most out of it as well. So to answer the question, like, how do you build a strong, authentic employer brand that conveys your values? For us, it's really in the people. And the people that are talking with our candidates as well. And so we make sure that all of our, well, let's say you're going to be hired as an engineer, or you're going for job interviews as an engineer with us. We actually get pretty much 80% of the team to be able to talk to that person at some stage of their recruiting pipeline, and they can see it go through all the time. So we make sure that everyone is very happy with that person, but then also that candidate also gets a bit of a taste of what our culture is and so on.
Okay, so let me ask a question and kind of and build on top of this. So I get the website stuff, Adam, and shuffling the photos around. Where does the use of video to tell or to show the culture or the brand within the employee population? Are you leveraging video, and are you leveraging the social channels like the Instagrams of the world and Snapchats to push out everyday happenings internally inside the office? Are your employees taking part of that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. To be honest with you, we don't do that yet, and it's more from just like we don't have enough time to be able to put those videos together, and sort of our level of professionalism that we expect, we wouldn't be able to deliver such a high rate of videos to be able to do that at this stage. But it's definitely something that I've been thinking about. Funny enough, I've been looking at videos from BambooHR and all of the other companies kind of in our area to see what they do, and I think it's really effective. We haven't actually done much yet, but hopefully in the future we will be able to do that.
So Adam, go ahead, Amanda. No, you go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's Amanda from Lever. So on the video piece, Adam, I totally hear what you're saying in terms of professionalism and really wanting to deliver a high-quality product. That was something that was really important to us as well, but we also wanted to make sure that we were continuing to contribute to one of our own company quirks. And so we make a lot of GIFs here, GIFs, GIFs at Lever, and it's part of our celebration process when a candidate accepts his or her offer. And so the team that they'll be joining will make a customized GIF for that person. It's usually inclusive of something that we've learned about them throughout the interview process, and it's super fast, and then it usually takes about 5 minutes to create, and then we send it out to that new hire, and then we do CC the entire company, and then the waves of welcome emails come in welcoming that new hire. So the nice thing with GIFs is that you're not looking for like the highest production quality, because everybody understands that it is a GIF, but it has gotten to be so popular with us that candidates are starting to cite it in their application with us. And so for us, that is a really great signal that it's something, one, that's really strong about our culture, but two, it's become something that people have started to identify with our employer brand. So it doesn't have to be something that's gigantic or expensive. It can be those quick 5-minute things that can really make an impact to, push your employer brand forward.
Yeah, that's an awesome point.
Yeah, that is perfect, Amanda. I know on our team, we will often send a group text picture. So we'll all get together. We have a bunch of pandas hanging out with us, and we love to send it to that new person who's going to be joining our team. And I think the element here is, Amanda brought up 2 really great points, is be authentic to who you are. Don't just copy something because it's out there. Do it because it's part of your culture. And then second, you don't have to have a ton of resources to be able to use technology and get out there with some sort of visual and be using the social media and all those channels that you really have to use if you want an effective employer brand. Otherwise, you're going to have holes and gaps, and folks won't know about you.
Yeah, it's interesting you say. I'll add just one more thing. We don't do videos or anything, but one thing that we do that we have implemented is that as soon as we send out an offer to a candidate, we encourage all of the team that they're going to be a part of to actually email that candidate just to sort of push them over the edge and hopefully get them to sign the offer, but just in more cases than not, just to welcome them to the family, make sure that they understand if they've got any questions, give them a little bit of kind of background of who that person is that's reaching out and what they're getting themselves into in a good way. And I think that's it's proven to be an incredible tool for us to be able to get people over the edge and hopefully to make the jump to join us too. So yeah, it's not the most visually crazy thing, but it's really a fantastic thing that actually, to be honest with you, goes really nicely with our values and our employer brand, because it's really about being part of our family of people that work here too.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, Adam, that it sits in there aligned well with the values of the individual company. And I can remember from times back at, when I was in the corporate world with IBM and so on and so forth, someone joins the company, you get that email, and that's why, Amanda, I think so many people are going to walk away from this call today, if with nothing else, they're going to go make gifts now, because that just would lighten that mood on that email so much, and I think the engagement would just quadruple on the emails instead of the normal welcome email. This is very, very good. I like that point.
Yeah.
Lex, let's go to the next question. I'm sorry, did someone else have something?
Nope, all good.
Okay, perfect. So let's get into some candidate experience stuff here. So how do you craft a candidate experience that reflects the employee experience? And there's a difference there. So I'm not sure if somebody wants to talk about or define the difference, if you could, between candidate experience as well as versus the employee experience, and then get into the question.
Yeah, Amanda here. I can hop in on this. So I think as recruiters, we're so hyper-focused on providing a really fantastic candidate experience. So that initial touch point from application to when they sign their offer letter, and then the transition to onboarding or human resources or whatever your function is at your company occurs. And then the employee experience is really about what that journey is from even before their very first day. So that company onboarding, filling out documents, interactions with the behind the scenes people, all the way through their very last day, and for some companies even through like their alumni networks or what have you. And so I think oftentimes they're too siloed, and this is something we're talking a lot about here at Lever. So our people team is made up of my team, the recruiting team, and then also employee experience. And something we're really focusing on right now is making sure both parts of that experience, so both candidate experience and then employee experience, have echoes of one another throughout the other process. So we make impact descriptions here. Somebody else was talking, Adam, I think you were talking about job description. So we write about what an employee's impact should be at month 1, month 3, month 6, and month 12, so people can really see what they're supposed to be doing if they're tracking. And it's a great document, and we put a lot of work into it because it also serves as a partial onboarding plan. But unfortunately, what winds up happening after about month 1 is this supposedly living document deprecates, and we don't keep it updated, we don't reference it, we don't use it as we should, which is a tool to make sure that employees are guided well and managers know where their employees are supposed to be performing. So that's an example of one way that we would like to continue to leverage the employee experience and recruiting part throughout the entire process. And I think that there are other ways to do that. So, for example, I think all of our panelists today have talked about their company values. And Adam, I mean, it sounds like even at 40, you have great values in your company, and I think that's rare, so kudos to you. But I think that sometimes instead of navigating interviews with values, we go on gut check. So I think another way you can do that is by including your values as part of the candidate experience, and then continuing to reinforce behaviors throughout the employee experience. But candidates that will then become employees are really starting to get a taste for that company value, that company culture, those behaviors that managers and leadership would like to see from the very start of the process all the way throughout the entire employee experience.
Wow, Amanda, I don't know how to say ditto with a gold star. That was awesome.
Thanks,
yeah, that was the point that I wanted to make, is there shouldn't be a difference between the two, right? This is who you are. Either you're that way or you're not. And so it should be seamless in the experience. But if you're really looking to say, what is that experience, then start by looking in the mirror, right? What do you personally experience every day? What's good? What's the not good? Because let's be realistic, no one's perfect. And then where are the appropriate opportunities to make sure that you focus on that in the candidate experience so that when they do come on board, it's not all of a sudden a whole different flavor of your organization. So examples might be if it's really important in your organization to be on time, then your recruiter's timeliness and responsiveness is going to convey that, and you can be very direct about that with them. And then the other one that we really focus on is sharing stories. So whenever we add a new member to our recruiting team, I talk to them about how important it is for them to develop their own story, because that's what's valuable, is to say, hey, potential future coworker, this is what I think you might like about our organization after they've gotten to know them, and then they can share a meaningful experience that's authentic to them. And those resonate well. And it's not that you're committing that this candidate will have that exact same experience, because each one is unique and personal, but it's about being able to identify, here's what I value and here's how I experience that within my day-to-day work. And those really resonate well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll add just one more thing to that, is just that in most of the candidate experience and going on to the onboarding side of it too, is that I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that it's not only your kind of senior leadership or hiring manager that's involved in all of this candidate experience and also the onboarding experience. It's so important to get your whole business involved wherever you can. Obviously, as your business starts to grow into the hundreds to 200s, that obviously gets much, much harder. But if you start from the beginning of only having 40 people and making sure that everyone gets involved, then you're starting to pave the way for the future as well. And I truly believe that if you can get your team in front of your candidates early, and then also keep that going throughout the process of their onboarding and so on, that's when you're going to start to create an incredible culture of people wanting to help each other as well. And yeah, I can't put it as a big enough star on the stuff that Kathy and Amanda were saying, is that it's just so important to make sure that you're showing that throughout the whole process.
That's some good points, and I just want to throw a kind of an ancillary question out here. Is this kind of the same debate, candidate experience versus the employee experience, the same as employer brand versus consumer brand?
I don't think it should be different. I try to bring in whatever we have.
Adam, I think we lost Adam there for a moment here.
Can you hear me?
Oh.
We got you now. You broke up for a bit.
Oh, sorry. Is that better now? Can you guys hear me?
All good.
Yeah. So, I mean, we bring in.
Looks like Adam. Looks like you're getting a bad connection there. We can come back to that once you get a better connection. Lex, let's go to the next slide. All right. So, employee advocates. How do you leverage your employee advocates to authentically portray your culture? This is one that I see all the time. I'll just start with this. That puts a taste in my mouth where things are not real. When you see hordes of employees out there pushing a brand or posting pre-created content, pre-approved content from a specific brand out to their networks and things like that. So let's talk about this a bit. How do you leverage employee advocates to authentically portray your culture?
So this is Cassie. I'll jump in here if that's all right. One of the things that I would say is make sure you're aware of your people's comfort levels. You don't want to make them uncomfortable. For example, believe it or not, I'm actually naturally shy. I don't like being front and center, but with my position, it's important that I be actively involved internally as well as externally in interfacing with folks and sharing what we care about and value. So no one ever pushes me to be extra social media outside of my comfort zone, but they really help to facilitate so that I'm effective but not uncomfortable. And then I think there's opportunities to look at the programs you have that actually acknowledge and reward that employee advocacy. So one that I think about is when you look at employee referrals. as folks within your organization are willing to talk outside about how great their company is and encourage folks to come join the team. And how do you do that? Are you really responsive? There's nothing more discouraging than being an employee and sending your recruiting team 10 referrals and not one of them got hired. You feel unheard. You feel like the time that you contributed and the personal networks that you tapped into are not valued. And so do you take the time to communicate to them that you've got those referrals, that you're taking care of them? And even if they don't get the position, do you give them feedback to understand why that referral was a great fit for the organization? Or do you have some disparity in your employees' perspective of what would make a good fit for that role or team versus what your managers are actually screening for? That's something you can train and spend a little bit of time teaching so that it's a positive program. It's going to reward. You're going to get the results out of it you want. But that's just a quick example of how to leverage employee advocates, and there are other opportunities as well, but that's one I like to talk about.
Yeah, Cassie, Amanda here. I really like your point about comfort level. At Lever here, we're pretty introverted as well. I definitely empathize with you about being a little bit shyer. And our company is fairly similar. And so we have a lot of internal champions that do not want the limelight. They don't want to be on stage. They don't want to be a spokesperson. And so when they come to us and like, but what else can I do? We really try to work with them to make sure that they feel like they're contributing to candidate experience, employer brand, and making sure that they are sharing what their experience has been. So we do have an internal, not an internal company blog, but a blog that is about what it's like being at Lever. So we do have our official Lever product blog, but then we have a blog called Inside Lever. And so one of our product ops specialists, her name is Charmaine, wrote this phenomenal post about what it's like being on the product ops team. And it's written by her. Yes, we did edit it, but for grammar and structure and voice. But she really just talked about what her own experience here was like. And so it allowed her to participate without having to be an interviewer or without having to go talk at a conference. So that is one way. Another thing that we do here as part of our interview process, we do host candidates on site for lunch, and we're lucky that we do have lunch catered here. And so we do this for two reasons. One, we definitely want to feed our candidates to make sure that they're set up for a successful day, but then also we just want them to experience what other Leveroos are like. And it is non-evaluative. It really is just to get the candidate talking with other Leveroos. Sometimes those will be people on their team. Other times it'll be very cross-functional with people from engineering and sales and marketing all at one table. But it allows people to contribute to one culture and to a really fantastic experience. And then three, without having to book tickets or book accommodations, or without having to go through a lot of the rigmarole that you often have to in order to say something on behalf of a company. And so we want to make sure that we are reinforcing one of our core beliefs, which is recruiting here is a team sport. It's not just recruiters, it's on the whole organization. And so we do try to provide as many different ways across as many different mediums as possible for employees to get involved.
And Amanda, I think you have two wins here. We have a tweetable quote, I think. Feed your candidates to set them up for success. That's what it is. Out of all of that, that's the one thing I took away. That's good. So we got the gifts and feed your candidates. I love it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Of all things. All right. Anybody else have anything on this one, or do we want to move on here? Let's move on. So how do you advocate for more resources from leadership to build a meaningful recruiting process? This is a nasty debate, we'll say, inside of a lot of companies. So let's I'm sure we can get a lot of good stuff here.
This is very top of mind for us right now. We just finished up our second half of the year planning and kickoff, and this is something my team's thinking about right now. How does our team need to grow in order to support the needs of the business? And so we've been doing a lot of capacity modeling. So for those of you that aren't familiar with what that is, it's how much can a recruiter or a coordinator or a sourcer actually do? So it's fine if you just continue to add requisitions on top of requisitions onto your recruiters, but that doesn't mean anything unless they can actually attain what is necessary to fill those roles or close those requisitions. So what we get nitty-gritty enough into like creating offer letters, scheduling that first phone call, scheduling that initial on-site. How many calls does it usually take to successfully close a candidate? We really try to build out what a successful hire looks like and what that time commitment is for a recruiter, so that we can go to our leadership and say like, hey, we have X amount more heads to fill this coming, whatever time span it is. Here's what we can realistically do with how we're currently, our team is currently structured. We're going to fall short by X%. Our best recommendation is to fill in the blank, hire another coordinator, hire a marketing manager, hire another recruiter, whatever the case may be. But I do find that it's really hard to argue with numbers. That being said, you do have to take the time to really understand your numbers and how your recruiters are spending their time. So Cassie, you had mentioned earlier, like really digging into the why. I think that's true in capacity planning as well, and really arguing for additional resources. You really have to show where that time is going and how it will really help the business succeed if you can have more resources, and exactly what the output will be.
I couldn't agree with you more around the numbers. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about the numbers. Numbers talk more than anything else, especially with leadership. One thing I would add to it, and if you're on this webinar and you have a small business, well, a number of people in your business is small, I would encourage you to get your leadership involved in the whole process as well, so they can actually see what happens too. In some cases, it might be harder as you start to grow, where leadership obviously won't have the time to be able to do that. But one of the things that's really helped with us is actually having our co-founder get involved in the recruiting process and see what actually takes a while and what doesn't take a while. And then from there, be able to say, okay, well, then we need to have resources to help out with this in the future too. So that's helped us a little bit.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I really like what both of you have shared, and I think not only do you have to be data-driven on the numbers, you really ought to be clear on the value proposition, right? Mm-hmm. What is the value you're getting? So at BambooHR, we're actually very hands-on. Yes, we use technology to facilitate the pieces that are important for us to be expedient on, but we recognize there are certain aspects of recruiting that are important for us to have people talking to people. And it costs more, but again, there's a value proposition that's worth it to us, and so it aligns with our goals. I think another important thing to consider is how often do you take the time to communicate the issues that you're seeing and facing in the labor market with your top leadership. They may not know the battles that you're facing. I was reading an article just last week on Bloomberg, excuse me, on Bloomberg.com, and they were kind of discussing the state of the state for recruiting within the general U.S. labor market. And one of the points that they stated really jumped out to me. And they said that in April of 2017, there was 1.17 job seekers for every vacancy, compared to July of 2009, where it was 6.65. Huge difference in employment availability. And then, of course, you're going to have localized issues. So we're in the tech industry, and it is fierce hot. I mean, I have to come in a fireman suit every day and bring a big old hose to keep up with the heat that's generated. And so make sure that your leadership knows the genuine battles you're facing, so that you're investing resources the right way, so that you're winning how your team wants to win.
Cassie, if I can go back to a comment you made around keeping the recruiter as part of the process at certain points around, I'm assuming it's around more the human interaction around touching the candidates at a certain point and things like that. But can you share with everyone on the call, because that's always a huge topic of debate, are the bots going to overtake the world? And different than what we're talking about here, but you brought that point up. What parts in your organization, what parts of the process do you just not want to remove a recruiter from?
Usually it's going to be, so it depends on the role, to be honest. Certain roles, you can automate more aspects of it. So for instance, with our client-facing teams, sometimes they have to have Excel skills, and I don't really need a human being there to quiz you on an Excel function in order for the applicant to demonstrate a certain level of proficiency. So we're mindful of, in each aspect or each step of our screening process, what is the key information we are seeking, and what is the most effective way to get that? Are we looking for just an efficiency of kind of a yes, no, they meet the expectation, or is this really needing some in-depth exploring? And that's where we're talking about having conversations. There's also the element of just having people so you can build a relationship. You can talk about what it's going to look like, what hopes and dreams are, and align those to the available opportunities that you've got. That's kind of the approach that we take.
And obviously that can determine at which points in the process you do need additional resources, be it tech or additional hands and people like that. So, all right, Lex, let's move on to the next question. And okay, so what do many recruiters get wrong when they're trying to attract candidates? Oh, the great question of attraction. What are recruiters getting wrong in the world today?
I'll say one thing and one thing only. It's just a vanilla process.
Say it again, Adam. Sorry.
Sorry, can you guys hear me? Yeah, I would say it's literally just a vanilla process. It's the same thing that every single other recruiter does. And I think everything that we've talked about prior, what Amanda and Cassie have been talking about as well, it's literally, if you're doing the same thing as everyone else, you won't be able to stand out as much as you can. One of the things that I believe that we pride ourselves on more than anything with our candidate experience is that we are reaching out to people and also getting back to people really, really quickly. And I think that's really, really important. We've had so many candidates that reach back to us once they actually get hired and just say, your experience was incredible, that you were able to get back to me within only like half an hour within me emailing you. And yes, that's to do with obviously the amount of work that each person has on their plate, but I think being responsive is very, very important, and I feel that recruiters get that wrong sometimes too.
Right. So a question kind of build on that and maybe take it a different angle. So both for Amanda and Cassie, both organizations do a tremendous job on content marketing. We see it all the time. Great content, by the way, whoever's creating it there. Is that the same process that you're using to attract people who may or may not be part of our industry, or are you only using that from a marketing perspective on the product? Are you using that for candidate attraction as well?
At Bamboo, we absolutely use it for all avenues. Anyone who's taken a peek at our careers website and looks at us on social media, you can see a very deliberate effort because we think it matters, and it speaks to many of the questions we've been covering today. Is if you've built an authentic culture that brings strength and unique standout ability within your industry, then how do you message and share and let others join and participate more easily? So whether it's effectively using all the social media channels, but we're really deliberate on making sure that we've invested time appropriately there. One of the, kind of going back to the original question, one of the issues that are often easy for recruiters to fall into, kind of a trap, is that you're so interested in getting the job filled that you might lose sight of ensuring that it's an actual map to what the candidate wants to experience. Because if they come and it's not really the dream that they were hoping for, they're just going to leave. And so all that effort really didn't result in any meaningful returns for the business. So you don't want to get in the trap of not understanding what the candidate wants and just selling the job. And then the second thing that I see, and I think it's true in organizations regardless of size, is sometimes the disconnect that recruiters can have from hiring managers. I really believe that the partnership of those two functions is where you can find awesomeness and really bring the kind of talent that is going to be meaningful to helping your company reach their goals. Do you understand on the recruiting side, do you know what the strengths are in your hiring manager's team? Are you aware of areas where they need new talent outside of the basic function of the job? For example, at BambooHR, we just hire a lot of really nice people, but sometimes we're killing each other with niceness. We need people who are willing to be aggressively involved in some debates so we come up with great ideas and choose the best answer. And so it might be important to hire someone who's less conflict avoiding to make my team more diverse and therefore more effective. Amanda, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Cassie, I feel like you and I need to talk more about our companies because we have so many similarities. We're also very nice here at Lever, and one thing that I agree with you that recruiters can definitely get wrong is looking to hire carbon copies of the current makeup of the team. So if you have a conflict avoidant team, then if you continue to hire in that image, you will continue to perpetuate a challenge, right? And so with adding diversity and experience and skill sets, it makes your team stronger. It fills in those gaps. And more diverse teams tend to be more productive and more innovative and more successful. So I absolutely agree with you. Ryan, to your question on the content marketing piece, absolutely. I think two things that, to your point about like employer branding and then product branding, I think the same is true with content marketing as well. Our Inside Lever blog is definitely targeted towards people that may be interested in working here at some point, and we definitely take the long view. If it's not this month or even next year, maybe it'll be sometime in the future, but we definitely want to be on people's roadmap when they're considering that move. And then to add onto what else recruiters often get wrong, I see this more with larger organizations because I think that smaller organizations definitely have to get creative, otherwise, you're dead in the water. But even outreaches that I still get right now, recruiters tend to focus on the perks or the location. It's nothing that actually matters to me about my own value set or my career aspirations or anything like that. And so, and I hear this a lot from folks internally that share some of the recruiter outreaches that they get. You really have to stay away from those perks, really show how this opportunity can catapult you further in your career. Perks are everywhere, but they aren't what make up a career. Really meaningful leadership, really meaningful impact, those are the things that are at the crux of how people make those decisions. So really doing your research first and really understanding as much as you can from an online profile what somebody's trajectory has been to date so that you can make your best guess about what might be meaningful for your company and this opportunity, and really doing a great job communicating that as well.
Those are some really good and strong points. One follow-up here. I think it might have been you, Cass, but probably all of you, really, where recruiters are hiring the same person over and over, that same profile for example, a software engineer, and they're hiring 10 of them, and they hire 10 of the same people based off of their skill sets and knowing that they can come in and slam some code and get the job done, but not worrying about the soft skills, the personalities, the conflict management, things like that. Do you think that's more of a product of an RPO or a large recruiting firm hiring for a corporate entity, or is that more of a function of the internal corporate recruiter that generally falls into that bucket of making those bad hires?
Yeah, I can start here. I definitely see it when recruiters become disengaged. So I hesitate to make it a hasty generalization about company size or this person or that person, but I definitely see it when somebody is hiring hand over fist and it's wash, rinse, repeat. And that can be at large companies, that can be when a recruiter is burning out, or it can be a number of reasons, but it's when the recruiter no longer chooses to invest in really understanding, again, Cassie, to your point, to the why that they're trying to hire this person. So Ryan, you said like, well, they can come in and they can slam code, but where's that code going? What is that really going to do for the organization? And I think it's when recruiters forget to ask themselves those questions, then they stop focusing on those soft skills. They stop focusing on how does this person like to receive feedback? Can they? How do they work with others? How do they take a negative code review? And then it's just like, well, this person can do the job, so let's hire them because I have 9 other people to hire. And I think it's the recruiters that really slow down to take the time to understand, communicate with hiring managers, understand what their current team is missing, that you have the recruiters that really have their ear to the ground and are picking up on some of those in between the lines things that they know they need to have in a candidate, even if they can't articulate it yet.
I agree. It can be easy. Recruiting is a hard job. It's a tough gig. Day in and day out, you're really rushing through that data, you're rushing through numbers, you're interacting with people, and sometimes it's easy to just kind of get into this slump with your job. And so what I encourage is just a mindfulness that there's a propensity for that, regardless of the size of or the function of the organization you work for, which at BambooHR, we've really adopted a model of business partnership. So our recruiters go meet with managers. They join in their leadership teams. They go hang out at the team updates. They go to team lunches. They're actually involved. They know the people. And so they can see more of what the role is outside of the core output that the function is hiring for. The more that they can be a real person experiencing it, the more that they can do that in their job.
Very good. Okay, Lex, let's move forward. Okay. We're gonna put the I guess hopefully not pass the buck around, but we're gonna kind of shoot the arrow at you guys here. What have you gotten wrong in the past?
Do we really have to create this list? I mean, I thought that we were all friends here, y'all. Come on. No, I will.
You only learn from your mistakes, right?
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. We all make them, right? And if we're not willing to acknowledge them, we'll just continue to make them without actually learning and growing. As I look back at my career and my experience in different organizations, I guess I want to share a personal what I've gotten wrong. And for a time, I was able to rely on what I knew I was good at, right? I'm like, I am awesome at Excel. I can kick butt and build a formula. I can do all these things. But I used that strength in ways that sometimes became a distraction from other opportunities, and it sometimes made me complacent because I knew I was good at A, B, and C, and then I made sure that my work revolved around A, B, and C. And with the speed of technology and business, I think that's a real problem and a trap. If you're too comfortable with where your strengths are at, you're going to miss out on opportunities. So I would encourage just really having that internal perspective of always needing to stretch the boundaries and gain new strengths so that you're not just able to say, this is what I've done historically, but I'm prepared for the challenges that are yet to come, and I'm honing my skills so that I'm ready for that.
That's a really good point. I think that I think all of us tend to over-index on things that we're good at because it feels really good to have mastered something. I definitely empathize with that, Cassie. I definitely have made mistakes in ignoring my gut, and I always push our interviewers, our hiring managers to really articulate what that gut feel is, because we don't make hiring decisions here based on gut. And so earlier on in my career, I'm thankful to say that I've finally learned from it, but I would have a gut feeling about something. So whether it was like a bad reference check, but my hiring manager was breathing down my neck, so I was like, I'm sure it's not going to be that bad. Well, spoiler alert, it was really bad, and we wound up letting that employee go a couple months in, and then I had to backfill that person and then have a really hard conversation with that hiring manager. So being able to articulate that gut feeling and not ignoring it, even when you're strapped for time, you're strapped for resources, because it may be the short-term solution now, but it's going to be that long-term problem later. So really being able to, again, slow down and making sure that you're checking everything off and that this hire feels right because you've been able to articulate that it is right.
You literally took the words out of my mouth.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No, I was going to just echo what you're saying is take your time. Probably the most important thing in any business is to find the right people at the right time. And yes, you might have a hiring manager breathing down your neck or something like that, but it's super important to take your time and find the right person for the right position. And if you go too fast through the processes, then unfortunately it can get to a point where you actually are hiring the wrong person, which in the end will take much more of your time and everyone else's time in the business if you make that wrong decision. We've made that decision in the past, some of those wrong decisions in the past, but we've definitely learned from it. And I think, like I said at the start to Cassie, is that what you do wrong can only make you stronger, right? And so we've learned from that situation, and we take our time with all of our candidates more from a point of view to make sure that we've made the right decision no matter what.
Absolutely, and a really quick story, you reminded me, of actually something that happened just yesterday. So our general and administrative recruiter, Brenna, had a new role. It was a more entry-level role, but she'd hired for it before at another company, and her hiring manager was getting really frustrated that we weren't closing this role, we weren't filling it, and she kept telling him, like, I can get you somebody really great. Like, I know what a great hire this looks like for this role. And sure enough, she waited. She really pushed her hiring manager. This person has now been with the company for only 3 months, and she received a company-wide recognition award that we only do once every 6 months. And so if you really wait for that hire, it not only solves your current problem, but like they can do so many wonderful things, and this person is now the new bar for, yes, this entry-level role, but we know that we have the opportunity and the responsibility to hire somebody that's really fantastic.
That's a great example. Okay, I think let's set the last question. I think so.
Yeah, the last one. Really, all we have to do now is thank our sponsors and remind everybody that they can find them on social media and follow them on Twitter at BambooHR, at Lever, and then we do have a couple more questions that trickled in that we can ask, and then we can wrap things up.
Okay, fantastic. Before we get started with questions, though, guys, and as we're lining this up, feel free to go ahead and add in any questions you want into the chat bar there, or question bar to the right of your screen. We'll give it a moment to queue up, and then Lex is going to moderate those out. But before we go, certainly a big thank you to everybody at Bamboo and Lever, and of course Adam. There you go, Scoop, and we have two good offers for you guys. With BambooHR, they are going to give everybody a free job posting on the ATS. If you go ahead and complete the information, we'll send you that after the webinar. And then Lever, we also want to make sure that you guys get a chance to look at the great things that they're doing. I've seen some of their latest updates, and I certainly would recommend at least a look to see what's going on there with the product. It's very, very good. Some good different things there. So all of that information will be in a few places. For one, it's going to be on the site in about 24 hours or so. And you'll also receive a follow-up email after the webinar. We will have these offers in there. Just go ahead and click through. Everything will be lined up for you guys, and just submit your information there. And Bamboo and Lever will definitely get back to you guys real quick. So with that, I want to pass this over to Lex. She's going to moderate some of the questions that have come in.
Awesome. Okay, so anybody can answer, obviously, from our panel here, but one of the first ones that came in was from Rachel Oliker, and she was wondering, do referrals tend to lead to less diversity within a company? Thoughts? Whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, Amanda here, I can pop in. They can. And I know that's not a very direct answer, but I think, one, it depends on, first of all, the makeup of your company. And then, two, it depends on their own network. There are definitely some studies that show that referrals can reinforce a lack of diversity. So I think that if part of your TA plan is to leverage referrals, being really, really clear that referrals do tend to draw more employees that have a longer tenure and are higher performing, which is great, but that diversity is something that also matters to your company, is really important. People tend to have more people in their network that look like them, that have backgrounds like them. So it's something to be aware of, and it's definitely something that you'll have to keep an eye on. And then, so hopefully that you don't have to correct for it later. So starting as early as possible. I wouldn't say that referrals should not be a part of your talent acquisition strategy, because they can reinforce the current makeup of your company. It's just something that you'll have to actively work to communicate with your entire employee base about.
And to build on top of that, I would recommend being very actively involved in your referral program. So don't just have it kind of invitation and then folks respond to it. One of the things that we'll do is we'll actually get together with groups of people, and we will sit down with them and go through some of their networks to help maybe look past that first layer, which is where you're going to get a lot of that same behavior, and that's where you can get into more of that diversity, digging a couple layers deeper into that social network.
Yeah, we're actually putting together a quick session for all of our employees to not only about your specific question around diversity, but also around like how do you actually talk to people to convince them to join the company too. And so we actually have our CEO that's going to be talking within that session to teach people about like what you should be looking out for, how do you present yourself when you're talking about Scoop to your referral network and so on. So that's always a great idea to get the whole team together to be able to talk that way.
Good point.
Awesome. And then a question, a lot of people want to know what are the best tools available to create GIFs?
Yeah.
GIF questions now, so let us know what the best thing to use is.
Yeah, my favorite, just because it's super easy to use, is GIFPal. It's GIFPAL.com. And to get started with it, it's a little wonky. You have to click a button that says, yes, enable the use of Java on your computer. So it will depend on if your company actually allows you to have that. And it's super easy to use. You can trim the front part of your GIF when you're pressing the button and then you're running to join the GIF and you don't want those first 10 or so frames, and then you can trim the back. You can also speed it up or slow it down depending on what you want to do, and then you can obviously do as many as you want and then delete all of the frames. GIFPal.com, that's the one that we use here.
Awesome, and I think that's actually almost a good stopping point. We stopped with a little bit of fun there. Is there any last minute anybody want to throw anything in before we wrap this up for the day? You guys were awesome. This went a lot quicker than I didn't even realize we were already almost at 3 o'clock. Is there anybody else wants to add before we finish up for the day?
The only thing I'd offer out there is keep doing what you're doing. Fight the good fight. It matters within your organizations. I know you already know this if you're working in the recruiting field, but don't lose hope with the myriad of challenges that you're facing each day. It's worth it to continue to give your best, so keep it up.
And then to add on to what Cassie just mentioned, I know it can seem overwhelming, and I think we tossed out like 20 ideas at you that we do at our various companies, but from any webinar or talk or conference, if you choose just one thing, and it doesn't have to be reinventing the wheel, but if you can choose one thing and try it, even pilot it with something, with a small part of your organization, it can really, really make big waves. But I really want to make sure that people don't feel overwhelmed. Like, I don't mean to speak for all of our panelists, but we're still learning too. So don't be afraid to try. There's no shame in it.
Yeah, and then I would add on that point is that I am learning stuff every single day. Use your professional network to be able to just send out a message to people that you think are incredible in their field and learn from them. I try to schedule lunches, breakfasts, and so on with everyone that I think are just incredible people. And if you can learn just one thing from each person, then you can just be stronger in every single thing that you do. So yeah, super important.
Awesome, that was great.
Looks like we have a good ending point right here. So I'll take a moment to say thank you to everybody who attended. Of course, all of our panelists. This was a great topic, great discussion, a lot of good engagement here. So once again, we'll have everything up on the website just about 24 hours from now. Keep an eye out in your inbox for the follow-up with all of the great offers from both Bamboo and Lever, and we'll be in touch real soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.